Shortly after Jake Paul called Bad Bunny a fake American and told the whole country to turn off the Super Bowl halftime show, what happened next didn't just break the internet, and the footage of the fight everyone's been searching for is crazier than you think. Let's get into it. The shot heard around the world. So when you see the words Bad Bunny and Jake Paul and fight footage all sitting together in the same sentence, your mind goes to one place and one place only. You're thinking about a boxing ring. You're thinking about gloves. You're thinking somebody caught a hook to the jaw and hit the canvas. And honestly, that makes complete sense. One of these guys is a professional boxer who has fought on some of the biggest cards in the sport. The other guy literally stepped inside a WWE ring, laced up wrestling boots, and put on performances that had grown adults screaming at their television screens. So yeah, the idea that these two got into some kind of physical altercation and somebody caught it on camera, that doesn't sound crazy at all. But here's what actually happened, and I need you to really hear me when I say this. What went down between Bad Bunny and Jake Paul is way more intense, way more personal, and way more damaging than any punch that either one of them could ever throw inside any ring on any night. It all kicked off on February 8th, 2026, Super Bowl 60, the Seattle Seahawks going up against the New England Patriots at Levi's Stadium out in Santa Clara, California. The Seahawks ended up winning that game 29-13, but honestly, the game itself was not the story that night, not even a little bit. The real story, the one that had the entire world talking, was what happened during halftime. See, Bad Bunny had been officially announced as the Super Bowl halftime performer, and from the very second that announcement went public, certain people on the internet completely lost their minds. We're talking full-blown, uncontrollable, red-in-the-face meltdowns. And out of everybody who lost it, nobody lost it harder or louder than Jake Paul. Roughly 2 hours before kickoff, Jake Paul got on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and he fired off a post that would send absolute shockwaves across the entire internet. He wrote that he was purposefully turning off the halftime show, and he called on all of his millions of followers to do the exact same thing. He said they needed to rally together and show these big corporations that they can't just do whatever they want without facing consequences. And then he dropped the bomb. He called Bad Bunny a fake American citizen who publicly hates America. Now, stop right there. I need you to really sit with that for a moment. Jake Paul, a man who was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, just looked at the entire world and called a man who was born and raised in Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, a fake American. And if you know even the first thing about Puerto Rico, if you paid even a tiny bit of attention in history class, you already know exactly why that sentence is absolutely, positively wild. Because Puerto Ricans have been United States citizens since 1917. It's over 100 years. Under something called the Jones Act, every single person born on that island is a full American citizen. Period. Full stop. End of conversation. There is no debate to be had here. But it gets even crazier. Because when you look at where Jake Paul actually lives, right? Now, the whole thing falls apart in a way that is almost too ironic to believe. Jake Paul moved to Puerto Rico back in 2021. He packed up everything and left the mainland United States behind. And why did he make that move? Was it because he had some deep love for Puerto Rican culture? Was it because he wanted to immerse himself in the community and give back? Absolutely not. He moved there for the tax breaks. Plain and simple. Under something called Act 60, which used to be known as Act 22, people who move to Puerto Rico from the mainland United States can qualify for some of the most insane tax benefits you will ever hear about in your entire life. We're talking 0% tax on capital gains. We're talking a 4% corporate tax rate for certain businesses. We're talking full exemptions on dividends and interest income. For somebody like Jake Paul, who is pulling in tens of millions of dollars every single year from boxing purses, brand endorsements, and all his different business ventures, that translates to an absolutely enormous pile of money that he gets to keep in his pocket instead of sending it to the government. So let me lay this out real clear. You moved to Puerto Rico specifically to avoid paying taxes. You went out and bought yourself a $16 to $20 million mansion in Dorado. You started calling yourself El Gallo de Dorado, which translates to the Rooster of Dorado. You put the Puerto Rican flag right there on your boxing trunks for the entire world to see. You rep that island every single time you step into the ring. And then, when a man who was actually born on that very same island gets handed the biggest stage in all of American entertainment, you go online and call him a fake American? The internet saw every single bit of this, and the internet was absolutely not going to let it slide. mind. But before we get into the complete and total firestorm of backlash that came raining down on Jake Paul's head, you need to understand exactly why he was so heated in the first place. Because this wasn't just about the halftime show, not even close. This goes way, way deeper than that. Just 6 days before the Super Bowl, Bad Bunny was standing on the Grammy stage accepting the award for Best Musica Urbana album for his record Debí Tirar Más Fotos. And during that acceptance speech, he did not hold a single thing back. He opened with the words, "Ice out," and then he looked right into those cameras and told the entire world, "We're not savages, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans, and we are Americans." He was talking directly about U.S. immigration and customs enforcement. He was talking about the raids that were happening in communities across the country. He was talking about families being separated and torn apart. And that speech right there, that is exactly what set Jake Paul off. Because Jake Paul has been a loud and proud supporter of Donald Trump. He endorsed Trump back in October of 2024. He showed up at Trump's inauguration in January of 2025, and he has been going online and publicly defending ICE at every single opportunity. He even went after Billie Eilish for speaking out against ICE at the Grammys, telling her that if she doesn't support law enforcement, she shouldn't be allowed to call 911 when she's in trouble. So when the Super Bowl arrived and Bad Bunny was about to step onto the biggest stage on planet Earth, Jake Paul decided it was his moment to fire his shot. And fire it he did. But that shot did not land the way he thought it would. Not even close. Because what happened next completely and totally blew up in his face. And it all started with the one person that nobody on Earth saw coming. His own brother. The family splits and the internet piles on. Logan Paul. The exact same Logan Paul who packed his bags and moved to Puerto Rico right alongside Jake back in 2021. The exact same Logan Paul who is living on that island and enjoying those exact same tax benefits. The exact same Logan Paul who has been Jake's partner, his ride or die, in just about every single venture they've ever been involved in for years and years. That Logan Paul took one look at what his brother posted on the internet and said, absolutely not. Now, here's where this whole situation gets really interesting, because at first glance, it actually looked like Logan was completely on the same page as his brother. There's footage from the Super Bowl red carpet earlier that day, where somebody walked up to Logan Paul and asked him a very simple, very straightforward question. They asked if he was excited for the halftime show with Bad Bunny, and Logan's answer was about as cold as it gets.
Logan, are you excited for the halftime show?
No.
One single word, no. And then he turned around and walked away without saying another syllable. No explanation, no context, no follow-up, just no, and then gone. But then something changed, something shifted. Because just a few hours later, after the halftime show had already played out in front of the entire world, after Bad Bunny had already delivered one of the most talked about performances in Super Bowl history, Logan Paul went on X and he quote tweeted his brother's boycott post. And what he wrote absolutely shocked everybody who saw it. He said, "I love my brother, but I don't agree with this. Puerto Ricans are Americans, and I'm happy they were given the opportunity to showcase the talent that comes from the island." That single post blew up like a bomb. Over 184,000 likes, nearly 15 million views. And the reason it blew up the way it did is because this was an incredibly rare thing. The Paul brothers simply do not go against each other publicly. That's not something they do. They have always ridden together, backed each other up, stood shoulder to shoulder no matter what. So for Logan to publicly step out in front of millions and millions of people and say, "I don't agree with this," on a post that was already going massively viral, that was absolutely huge. That was a crack in the foundation that nobody expected to see. But now here's the thing. People online immediately noticed the contradiction. They had the red carpet footage where Logan said no to the halftime show, and then they had this tweet where he's suddenly defending it. Replies started flooding in. People were calling it damage control. Some said WWE executives might have had a word with him since Bad Bunny is a major WWE attraction with a massive fan base. Others just flat out called him a hypocrite, pointing back to 2022 when Logan wrongly accused Bad Bunny of secretly benefiting from the same tax program that he and Jake were using. That accusation was completely inaccurate because Bad Bunny, as a native Puerto Rican, doesn't even qualify for Act 60 benefits designed for outside residents. But the internet wasn't anywhere close to being done with Jake, because the next person to step up and take a swing was somebody who has absolutely zero problem getting right up in Jake Paul's face and staying there. Dylan Dennis, the MMA fighter, the provocateur, provocateur, the guy who has been going back and forth with the Paul brothers for years. Danis saw Jake's post, and he said out loud what millions of people were already thinking inside their heads. He pointed out that Jake reps Puerto Rico every fight, and as soon as a Puerto Rican artist gets their shine, Jake starts hating. And then Danis took it a step further. He went right for the throat. He said, "This has nothing to do with Trump or being anti-American. It's just funny watching Jake cosplay as ultra-patriotic for clout, call Bad Bunny a fake American for being born in Puerto Rico while he literally lives in Puerto Rico to avoid paying U.S. taxes. Cosplay." He used that specific word. He said the man is out here cosplaying as a patriot, and that one word, right there, captured exactly what the entire internet was feeling about this whole situation. Then came Amanda Serrano, and this one hit completely different, because Amanda Serrano is a Puerto Rican boxing champion who Jake Paul literally promotes through his own company, Most Valuable Promotions. She is someone who Jake has helped put on a bigger stage. He gave her opportunities. He signed her to what they publicly called a lifetime contract. This is a woman whose career is directly tied to Jake Paul's business, and even she could not stay silent. She pushed back firmly and said, "Puerto Ricans are not fake Americans. We are citizens who have contributed to this country in every field, and our identity and citizenship deserve respect." Think about that for a second. That is a fighter who is literally on Jake Paul's payroll, telling him in front of the entire world that he is dead wrong. The regular, everyday people on the internet, they went even harder than the celebrities did. Influencer Connor Frantasked Jake what it's like to live with a brain deprived of oxygen, and then reminded the whole world that Jake lives in Puerto Rico specifically to avoid paying taxes. Politician Christine Villaverde called it discriminatory nonsense and pointed out that Puerto Ricans have been United States citizens since 1917, adding that if you need a civics lesson to understand that geography and language don't determine who's really American, that says more about your ignorance than their authenticity. People were creating memes left and right. TikTok was flooded. People were pulling up maps, history books, tax records, and every single receipt they could find. And through absolutely all of it, through every single comment, every reply, every quote tweet, every viral post ripping him to shreds, Bad Bunny said absolutely nothing back to Jake Paul. Not one single word. He didn't respond. He didn't engage. He didn't clap back. He didn't need to. Because while Jake Paul was sitting somewhere typing angry posts on his phone, Bad Bunny was standing on the biggest stage in the world doing exactly what he said he was going to do. Now let me ask you something real quick. When you take a step back and really break this whole thing down, who actually won this fight? Because yeah, there was no punch thrown. There was no boxing ring. There was no referee. There was no physical fight footage for anybody to find, no matter how long or how hard they searched for it online. People looked everywhere, and all they came across were memes, video game simulations, and old WWE clips from completely different events. The fight between these two was never physical, not even for 1 second. But make absolutely no mistake about it, it was a fight, a real one. And the scorecards, they were absolutely brutal for Jake Paul. His own brother publicly turned on him. His own fighter publicly called him out. His own longtime rival exposed every single contradiction, and the entire internet used his very own words as the weapon that buried him. But the real knockout blow, that came from what Bad Bunny actually did on that football field. And what the President of the United States had to say about it afterward might just be the craziest part of this entire story. The performance, the president, and the real knockout. Now let's talk about the actual halftime show itself, because this is the part that made everything else matter. This is the thing that transformed a social media beef into a full-blown worldwide cultural moment that had every corner of the planet buzzing. Bad Bunny's 13-minute set at Levi's Stadium was completely unlike anything the Super Bowl had ever seen in its entire history. He became the first male solo Latin artist to headline the halftime show and the very first performer to do the entire thing primarily in Spanish. Let that sink in for a moment. In a country where well over 44 million people speak Spanish as their primary language, it took all the way until the year 2026 for somebody to stand on that stage and do that. That fact alone tells you everything you need to know about why this performance mattered so much. The stage design was absolutely insane. The production team literally transformed the entire football field into what looked and felt like a Puerto Rican village, complete with tall sugarcane fields representing the island's agricultural history, men sitting around playing dominoes, women doing each other's nails, and street vendors selling food from carts. And because the NFL has strict rules about not putting heavy equipment on the field that could damage the turf, the design team had to get incredibly creative. They dressed 380 extras up as living plants to build the landscape with real human bodies. They used 25 specially designed turf-friendly carts to move set pieces around, and they loaded the entire show with over 9,800 individual pyrotechnics that lit up the California sky. The guest appearances took the whole thing to another level entirely. He brought out Lady Gaga for a salsa remix of their collaboration Die With a Smile, and then Ricky Martin stepped out for Lo Que Pasó Hawaii. There were also reports of cameo appearances from Cardi B, Pedro Pascal, Karol G, and Jessica Alba, though some of those were more consistently confirmed than others. And then there was the moment that had everyone in the stadium gasping. A real, actual wedding happened live on that stage during the middle of the performance. Bad Bunny had been getting hundreds of wedding invitations from fans all across the world, and he decided to make one couple's dream come true right there on the field in front of 100 million viewers. And then came the ending, the moment that brought everything full circle. Bad Bunny picked up a football that had the words, "Together we are America," written right across it. He shouted, "God bless America," at the top of his lungs, and then started naming countries from all across South and Central America one by one. And up on the massive screen behind him, the words appeared for the entire world to read. The only thing more powerful than hate is love. The professional reviews came pouring in immediately. The Independent gave the performance 4 stars and described it as an effervescent and wild, inclusive fiesta that represented old America at its best. Sports Illustrated handed out an A for music, an A+ for production and choreography, and an A+ for vibes, praising the authenticity and cultural depth of every single element. The Hollywood Reporter called the entire thing exhilarating and vital, and Billboard used the word triumphant to describe what they had just witnessed. And while all of that was unfolding inside the stadium, something powerful was happening right outside the gates. A group called Contra Ice organized a massive demonstration and handed out between 15,000 and 25,000 rally towels to fans walking into the venue. Those towels featured a cartoon version of Bad Bunny kicking a ta'ia, football with the words "Ice Out" printed across them, designed by artist Lalo Alcaraz. It was a direct protest against immigration enforcement that tied right into everything Bad Bunny had been saying at the Grammys and beyond. Those towels showed up on camera during the broadcast and flooded social media timelines for the rest of the night. Meanwhile, some of the actual NFL players at the game had already made it hilariously clear before the show that they had absolutely no clue who Bad Bunny even was.
Already got one. Sorry about that.
I don't know who that is.
I never heard of Bad Bunny.
I don't know who that is.
I heard performing at halftime.
But yeah, I don't know who that is.
I don't know no Bad Bunny song.
But by the time that halftime show was over and the lights came back on, every single one of them knew exactly who Bad Bunny was. The whole world did. And then Donald Trump decided to weigh in. The President of the United States, who had already told the New York Post weeks before the game that he was anti them when referring to Bad Bunny and Green Day, who had publicly called the selection absolutely ridiculous and a terrible choice that does nothing but sow hatred, went on Truth Social roughly 30 minutes after the performance ended and unleashed a full-scale rant for the entire country to see. He called it absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever, and said it was an affront to the greatness of America. He complained that nobody understands a word this guy is saying and called the dancing disgusting, especially for young children that are watching. He called the whole show a slap in the face to our country. That single Truth Social post racked up over 29,700 likes and thousands upon thousands of replies within hours. At the same time, down at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's people were already making it very clear what kind of halftime show they would have preferred.
At the Mar-a-Lago Super Bowl party, after the first 2 quarters, are the TVs going to be on the halftime show with Bad Bunny or the halftime show with Kid Rock?
I think the president would much prefer a Kid Rock performance over Bad Bunny, I must say that.
Kid Rock over Bad Bunny. That's where they were at. That was their answer. And it wasn't just talk either. Turning Point USA actually hosted a full-blown alternative halftime show featuring Kid Rock, and it was attended by Senator Tommy Tuberville and former NFL quarterback Brett Favre. So while Bad Bunny was performing for the whole world on the actual Super Bowl stage, they were sitting in a completely separate room watching Kid Rock play for them instead. And the viewership numbers? They tell you everything. About 5 million people watched the alternative show compared to the 127 million plus who tuned in to watch the actual Super Bowl. That is not even a competition. That's not even close to a competition. But here's the part that makes all of this hit different. Here's the part that really matters when you zoom out and look at the big picture. Through absolutely every single moment of it, the angry tweets, the boycott calls, the presidential rants on Truth Social, the alternative concerts with Kid Rock, the family drama between the Paul brothers, Bad Bunny never once responded directly to any of them. Not to Jake Paul, not to Donald Trump, not to any of the critics. Before the show, when reporters asked him about all the controversy and political noise swirling around his performance, he simply said, "There's no better dance than the one that comes from the heart." That was his answer, nothing more. He let the music do all the talking. And that right there, that is the real fight footage. That is what actually went viral and had the whole planet talking. It was never a fist fight. It was never a boxing match. It was never two guys squaring up in a ring. It was a man from a small town in Puerto Rico standing on the single biggest stage. In all of American entertainment, singing in his language, celebrating his culture, honoring his people, and sending a message of love and unity to a world that was screaming at him about hate. And regardless of where you personally stand on the politics of any of this, there is one thing that absolutely cannot be denied.
Oh, Benito was unbelievable. Loose, happy, made everybody ecstatic. I loved it. And congrats to the bunny. He's a great human being.
Awesome.
Fly
Okay,
safe.
love you.
Get home.
Later.
My motherland, mi patria, Puerto Rico. Seguimos aquí.
Seguimos aquí. We're still here. Bad Bunny didn't need to throw a single punch to win this fight. He just had to show up and be himself. Thank you for watching. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.